Focus. What exactly did I learn from my first business? The first business whereby I was a stock broker or a stock agent, and at the same time I was also selling website development. I learned that you must be able to assure delivery for you to be able to know that that is something you can focus on. You must also be able to ensure that the kind of work you're doing can give you a high return without you doing much. In other words, for you to focus on something, it needs to be high margin. In the case of my business, the stock commissions that I used to get were only, let's say, about 1 to 2% of the total amount transacted, because I was taking exactly the same amount that a stockbroker would take. And that means you have to be able to do so much for you to be able to make a significant amount of revenue. And that means that is a low margin business. From where I sit, my guidance and what I learned from that business is that if you want to focus on something that has a high margin. If you focus on something that has a high margin, you don't need so many customers for you to be able, to have a higher revenue. You probably need 1 or 2 or 3 customers. You are able now to serve them very well, and from there on, you are able now to grow. So focus on high margin business. If you focus on low margin business that requires that you need so many customers and you need to do so much work for you to generate a revenue, then it's going to be difficult for you to scale or grow that business. Now, other than my stock brokerage and website development business, what else did I do, or did I stop there? How now did I end up in consulting or in knowledge or education industry? Now, that's where I came to discover that probably learning or taking an example of my previous business, I needed to concentrate on consulting. A consulting business is a high margin business. You basically need 1 or 2 or 3 clients, and you are able now to assure delivery because you are the consultant yourself. So you are able to assure delivery. And you're also able to train others to be able to deliver for you because originally the ideas are from you. So a consulting business is a high margin business, and you can also be able to assure delivery. And this is something that probably was birthed or born out of the frustrations of the previous business. So if you want to grow, then you can focus on a consulting business. But the question is, do you just want to grow, or do you also want to scale? Do you want to flourish? And so on and so on. Why am I saying that? Let's look at instance at my consulting business. The definition of a consulting, or the model by which consultants work with, is that for you to be able to increase your revenue, you have to get an extra customer, and there comes a point that you'll not be able to serve all these customers by yourself. So you have to be able to get an extra helper or assistant. So that means there is a linear increase in terms of cost and revenues. As your revenue increases, also your costs increase because you have to hire more. And therefore, you are able to grow, yes, but you cannot scale. A time will come that you have so many customers and you have so many assistants, and since you are the only constant factor in that business, you now become what we call a bottleneck. Since you are no longer able to manage all this stuff, and you're no longer able to manage all the customers. And with that, comes what you call emotional breakdown. It comes with a lot of emotional torture, because managing people, that is your assistants, and managing customers is not an easy task. So you end up having what we call a lot of pressure in the business. And like, remember in the first business that I talked to you about, the one of stock brokerage firm, the emotional pressure from people trying to sell when the market is down because they are fearing can actually be transferred to you, such that it ends up now becoming a problem for you or affecting your psyche. The same thing with the consulting business. If you are not careful, the problems of the staff and the problems of the customers could end up now being transferred to you, because too much pressure may make you feel that you are not delivering, and so on and so on. So that's why we are saying I was able to grow with the consulting business. I was able to grow. I could increase my revenue and also increase my costs and grow, but it comes with the costs. This is what we call diseconomies of scale, whereby as you grow in revenue and as you grow in costs, the fixed factor, that is you yourself as a business person, you become limited. You are no longer able to cover and manage what is in the business. You're no longer able to manage the productivity of your staff, and you're no longer able to manage the expectations of the customer. And this is now where you have to ask yourself as an entrepreneur or a business owner, what more can I do? Can I now go near, or can I now re-engineer the business so as to ensure there is what we call scalability? And remember, in my previous videos, I spoke about scalability as the ability to increase revenue with also a small increase in costs. So the increase in costs do not have to be proportional to the increase in revenue. So you end up increasing your revenue 2x, but you have only increased your cost by 1x. In other words, for you to make 1 million shillings, you probably only need, or for you to increase your revenue by 1 million shillings, you do not need to increase your cost by maybe 500,000. Maybe you only need to increase by 100,000, and so on and so on. So in this case, the trick is, look at a high margin product, and we say consulting is a high margin product. Then ask yourself, how can I scale it so that I do not become the limitation in this business, such that even though I now get more customers, I don't have to have a correspondent increase in the costs. And this is where now automation or platforms come into place. And that's why I thought of coming up with, a learning management system, such that before, yes, I was a trainer, as a consultant and a trainer, but now can I be able to have people being onboarded into a learning management system whereby they can train themselves and also be trained by others, and whereby I put in place systems that can enable me to run all that and scale without necessarily getting or becoming a bottleneck. And this is exactly how Finstock University College was born. Finstock University College is a platform that is modeled on Coursera, and can be able to onboard as many as 1 million students and as many as 100,000 faculty members. And all this is managed by a small set of assistants who enhance the connection between the students and the faculty members on the other side. And that is something that one can focus on, because it's high margin, and 2, it is scalable, and 3, the emotional distress that comes with handling a lot of business in this case is reduced. So that is a good example